So there is a lot of information out there and strategies on how to prevent symptoms of IBS, and I wanted to share with you what I thought was the most practical way to approach it, at least in the beginning, at least to slow down some of the symptoms and get a bit of a handle on it if you haven't got anything going at the moment. You are starting with the diet because it is the most influential thing you personally have on it. So this is before any form of medical intervention. Maybe you have been diagnosed with IBS, maybe you consider yourself to have it. Either way, this is a really good place to start. You start eliminating foods. Many people will start with the FODMAP diet, which is a form of an elimination diet. It eliminates certain foods that have been considered to increase symptoms of IBS. Additionally, I'd suggest that you eliminate any sort of foods that you consider are or might be something your body doesn't tolerate. Any food intolerances like that, I would cut that out completely as well. For this period of time, you're on an elimination diet. You want to get rid of any potential disruptions to increase the symptoms. And you're going to do this for 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to also have a log of symptoms that you're having, log in a few times a day. Once you start tracking your symptoms, you might be able to then see patterns in the foods you've been consuming and the symptoms that you're getting from these foods. During this elimination phase, you want to reduce as many of the symptoms of IBS as possible. That's the idea of the elimination phase. It's not forever, it's really hard to do, and you might end up with some sort of malnourishment because you're not eating as much variety as you should. So you're on it for a temporary period of time, 2 to 3 weeks. You want to see improvements in your symptoms. Then at this stage, you implement one food group at a time. And by food group, I maybe just start with something that contains gluten. Make sure it doesn't contain gluten, milk, and nuts at the same time. You wouldn't want to do that. You would want to include one potential disruption at a time. Trial it over a period of that day. Go back to your elimination diet the next day and track for that 48 hours what sort of symptoms you're getting. If the symptoms increase, then that food is not for you, and you could potentially then continue a diet that revolves around not having that food. Again, after that, you would implement another food group and you would trial that, and you will eventually find foods that you can tolerate, and that can become a part of what's called a baseline for your diet. So you have the elimination diet, which is your baseline, and you are contributing to that baseline by finding foods that you do tolerate. It appears as though IBS is a pretty complicated issue. No one really knows what to do, and you're sort of on your own when it comes to this sort of thing. I was just hoping to give you a place to start. A lot of this stuff isn't straightforward. Too much of the information out there does contradict itself, I find. I think this is the most practical place to start for anyone who's looking to perhaps improve their gut health. So diet has a huge influence on it. There's many other factors, there's stress, there's mental health, and there's you can come in contact with allergens that are in the air. It's not a simple thing, but for you to have somewhere to start, I think, is really important. Anyone who tells you that dieting or eliminating foods is easy is lying to you. What's true is it's simple, but it's not easy. There's many things that are simple that are not easy. You have cravings that exist for these foods because your body is literally addicted to these things. And if you're having a super hard time giving up anything specifically, whether that's something bread, milk, alcohol, coffee, I want you to focus on just that one thing at a time, especially if you think that's a major cause. You have to be honest with yourself and say, I need to do something about this, and start there. Start with that one ingredient and phase it out over time. Have a little bit less each day over a week until you eventually aren't having any of it. And that's a really good place to start, because the addiction will take hold, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with this suffering simply because you can't stop consuming something, and that's not a nice place to be.